Hello, everybody. Welcome to Tiger Talks Wrestling. You can still hear that maybe a little bit in the background. I am your host, Tony, joined, of course, by co-host Eddie. Welcome into the show, my friend.
Hey, how you doing? Hold on. Hey, Alexa, shut up! Hi, how are you again? Welcome to Tiger Talk Wrestling.
That damn Alexa, anyway. It's like she got to try and take over our show.
I know. Alexa, turn off light.
Okay.
For the love of God. Alexa's taking over the show like the NWO.
For life, brother.
Yeah.
All right. So we are here today with our newest retrospective, as we decided, since it is, and if you look back in the history of September, there's only one show through wrestling that always took place every September. That one, of course, Eddie, was
WCW Fall Brawl. War Games. The match beyond.
indeed. And War Games is a topic that we will discuss at a later date and time, as there have been many War Games matches between WCW and, of course, now WWE, first in NXT and now up on the main roster during Survivor Series, which is our topic in November in a couple months. But War Games is one of mine, I'm sure one of your favorite match creations, I guess you could say. It's had many different changes. You can even see it in AEW, a version of it nowadays too. So something we'll talk about. Go ahead.
I do wish, and I don't know if you will agree with me. I wish WWE will put a top on their War Games, because it just looks like they're in a cage match. You know, I wish they would put, but how are you gonna do all these high flying moves? But
exactly,
it's a tweak version of, and nobody knows this, but maybe Tony Me knows it. War Games is a creation of the American Dream, baby.
Yes, one of many creations by Dusty Rhodes, and of course, the original War Games match is for the Horsemen in many War Games matches over the years.
Yes, it was. And when you talk about Dusty's creations, some of them are good, and then some of them are the Shockmaster.
That is true. That is very
and
true.
Some of them are odd.
Yes. Dusty had many great answers, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Usually I'd bring up the Wikipedia page for these shows to show you guys stuff, but I just put everything in the ticker so you'll know what matches we're talking about. If you want, you can go ahead and look up on Peacock or look it up on YouTube, probably even, or anywhere as you want to. You can find Fall Brawl 1996 War Games if you're interested in watching it at any point in time after the show. We'd prefer you not do it during the show, obviously, because we want you to be listening to us and listen to us. But anyways, I just watched this a little bit ago, so we got plenty to talk about as it goes to Fall Brawl War Games 1996. Of course, this was just a couple months after the formation of the New World Order and Hulk Hogan turning on WCW, but there was another person that was quite heavily in the mix that we'll get into that people thought might have been jumping ship to the NWO heading into Fall Brawl. We'll get into that. All right. So Fall Brawl 96 would kick off with the Diamond One himself, if you will. DDP, Diamond Dallas Page. If my ticker, there we go. went up against a young upstart in his very first pay-per-view match, I believe they were saying, in young Chavo Guerrero Jr., of course, the nephew of Eddie Guerrero, as many people know by now, the son of Chavo Classic. It's very interesting to these shows and see how young some of these guys. We'll get into other guys later on in the show, of course, but to see how young Chavo was there compared to what he looks like now, he's definitely changed quite a bit.
Absolutely. When you watch Chavito, man, I think he was 23 years old when he had his first matchup Fall Brawl against
Probably somewhere around
DDP.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, somewhere around there. And DDP was not a young guy. He was I think he was like 35 or 36 years old when he started wrestling. Yeah.
Yeah.
Two different styles. You got Diamond Dallas, rough and rugged wrestler, and then you got Vito, that was a high flyer, and he's a Guerrero. What more can you say? I mean,
exactly.
It's in his blood. You know.
Let us.
You know, I remember this match because it was also the battle, which is a stupid one. It was a battle over the Battle Bowl ring that DDP won at, was it Starrcade or Super Bowl? It was, I forgot where he won. It was one of the things. It was a Battle Bowl ring that he won, and he was having matches with the Guerreros to prove that he was the it factor. I mean, very good match. You know, two inexperienced guys wrestling, but they put on a good show.
Yeah, they even mentioned that just like a month or two before that, I think like a month before that, if that, DDP had actually lost his Battle Bowl ring to one of their Clash of Champions shows. So he had history with the Guerreros going in, as you mentioned. And Chavo looked pretty decent in this match for it being his first pay-per-view match. There was some spots that were a little bit sloppy, but I'm sure having to navigate with two rings there had to make a little bit of a difference compared to what they were used to.
That was the very unique thing about Fall Brawl. Two rings and all that, and you have to alternate, which is something you don't see in wrestling. No.
Right.
But it worked, and it showed people that WCW was up here and WWE was right there, because they never did two rings at the time.
Right.
So this was the level. So I got to give it props, because the only time WCW used two rings, well, 5 rings, let me say that, two at Fall Brawl, and then 3 at World War III.
Yep. That's true. That's another topic for another time, but I remember the World War III Battle Royals quite well. But yeah, like you said, these two put on a pretty decent match for being two guys that Chavo was still newer to the craft. DDP was not as new, but still was making his way through the rankings, if you will. And just out of nowhere, pretty much, DDP was able to hit a diamond cutter to pick up the victory in this match. These two gentlemen.
Most definitely. But here's a question I got for you, and I know some of our people will love to hear this. Who has the better diamond cutter? Different name, but it's the same move. Do you feel like Dallas has it? Or do you feel like the Viper Randy Orton has a better one?
That is so tough. They both hit it so well, and honestly, DDP was the original person that would hit it out of nowhere, in my opinion. But I think personally, now looking at this, I mean, he's been there for 25 years now, but I feel like Randy has pretty much perfected the cutter. Maybe to an extent that DDP came close to, but I think Randy just barely beats out DDP when it comes to this.
Most definitely. I agree with you because I watched a lot of DDP matches. Did he ever do one? Some guy jumped off and he did the diamond cutter off the top rope when somebody's diving on him, like he caught him in midair.
I don't know for sure, but I don't think he ever did.
Yeah. But yeah. I mean, now like the match with Chavito and Diamond Dallas, great match. It showed their ability. Chavo, I mean, hell, DDP went on to a Hall of Fame career. Chavito went on to be Kerwin White.
Yeah, briefly. A blessing in disguise. All right.
Yeah.
That was the opening contest for Brawl 96. We'll go into the next match. Quite the difference in between these two matches, as there it goes. Second match, of course, was Scott Norton going up against Ice Train with Teddy Long as his manager in a submission match. We talked a little bit about the match these two guys had at Hog Wild when we did our Hog Wild retrospective. Honestly, this match wasn't really. Scott Norton dominated for the most part, other than right at the end, and Teddy Long brought a little bit of a different dynamic to the match, I guess. But this still was just, it wasn't a good match. It's pretty much all you can say. Ice Train got the win with a full Nelson, and that's pretty much it. But anyway.
Teddy Long looked really good as a manager.
Yes.
Now let's move on.
You guys.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, my God. Yeah.
No offense to Scott Norton and Ice Train, but you could tell they were green as goose shit pretty much at both of those shows. All right, so the next match, you'd see the WCW debut of Juventud Guerrera, as he would go up against Conan, who had just become a member of the Dungeon of Doom. So he had Jimmy Hart with him as his manager, and this match was for the AAA Heavyweight Championship. The thing I found interesting to kick off the conversation for this is Conan was advertised as the AAA Heavyweight Champion, not bring a championship title out to the ring for this match, though. Even though it was supposed to be on the line.
Mexican AAA wrestling, I don't know, it's always good promotion, still around to this day. Yes. But it was a little odd if you're promoting a world heavyweight title shot for your company's championship, you'd think you would want to have the champion come out with the title.
Right.
I mean, it is what it is, but like, let's just say, look back at this. We couldn't see it because he had a mask on, but man, you could see how young Juventud Guerrero was in this match too.
Yeah, even with the mask on, you could tell he was quite young compared to what we'd see later from him. It's interesting when you look back and rewatch some of these matches and you see these guys in the masks, and yet you can remember what they look like without the mask, and some of them still wrestle without the mask, because Hoovy is one of those wrestles now without the mask more often than not.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, if you look back at the Juventud, we already know he was the juice. The juice was loose, doing like the rock prodigy in the late stage of the WCW. And then when he
Right.
went to WWE, the coolest thing I love what he did was the Mexicals on lawnmowers.
Right.
I mean,
Super crazy and
that was the
psychosis.
coolest shit in the world.
It was.
The other thing, if you look at Conan, I think he knew because he still wore. It was not a mask. I don't know what he was wearing, but he always wore that like a piece in his early years of WCW, and his outfits
The
were really
bandana.
colorful. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the man changed his whole outfit to uh to like a cook, like an essay. He changed his
Right.
going to the dungeon and working with the late great Kevin Sullivan. I think it helped his career for his next adventure down the road with.
The NWO. Yes.
Yeah,
And even past that, really.
yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say the gear he was wearing, the outfit he was wearing was more reminiscent of what he wore going forward when he was in the NWO, when he was in the Wolfpack, and then past that as the LWO and etc. Hoovy and Conan here had a pretty decent match. They were a little sloppy at different points, but in the end, with Conan having Hoovy up top and hitting that, what they call it, wrote it down, the power drop, a sit out power bomb almost off the top rope. That was a pretty impressive way to finish off the match.
And also really scary.
For Hoovy,
Yeah.
anything could have went wrong. But yeah, you could see Conan was kind of coming into his own more so in that match than if you go back the 2 months when we talked about Bash at the Beach, his match with Ric Flair. He looked okay against Ric Flair, but I felt like this was more of his. You seen more of Conan in this match than what you did a couple months prior. Of what we'd get to learn
Oh,
and know of Conan.
definitely going up against one of the greatest of all times, and Ric Flair took him to school. I mean, hands down.
Yes,
I
he did.
mean, you learned it when you learned it from the Nate how to wrestle. That's what a technical wrestler looks like, and that's what Ric Flair was, and still is today. Long as that he don't
Right.
get into the ring.
Yeah, exactly. Back in that ring, that's for sure. Rick needs to just leave that to his daughter these days.
And his
That's another
son-in-law
topic for
too.
later. Yes. God knows, yes. We need to get all over that. All right. So from Conan retaining his AAA heavyweight championship that wasn't even on the show, but yet it was still on the line, we go into the WCW pay-per-view debut of Chris Jericho. Don't even start. Against the Wolverine, because as we've mentioned before, we're not going to give him recognition of the full name or anything like that because he doesn't deserve it. A great nickel match these two guys had during Hog Wild or in our other new show, The Three Faces of Wrestling. These two guys, I felt like, never really had a bad match against each other. They had chemistry every time they stepped into the ring with each other. This was no exception to that.
Oh, hands down. When you have Jericho coming from ECW at the time, and then before that, that was Smoky Mountain Wrestling. James E. Cornette's organization, hands down, and it still amazes me to this year. This is 1996, people. 1996. Chris Jericho is still doing his stuff after all these years. I mean,
Yep.
you got to give it up. You got to give it up to Chris. I mean, maybe it's time for him to go because people are getting tired of the Jericho vortex, you know.
Yeah.
But what a he has, and the skin mark on wrestling. Great technical wrestler,
Mm-hmm.
but dumb on one side.
Yeah. It's true. Like I said, a great match. The Wolverine picks up the win with a belly to back suplex off the top rope, which that can be pretty scary in itself as well. Talk about how Conan's was scary. A superplex off the top rope is bad enough, but a belly to back suplex off the top rope, I don't think you've really seen anybody do it since then, and that's probably for a good reason.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, that's why wrestling sometimes when you got some of these wrestlers like protect the man that's in the ring with you. Don't try to injure him because then he can't provide. But yeah, I'm good with this. Let's just move on because I want to talk about yeah.
That's enough on that one. Gotcha. So then we get the WCW debut of Super Callow, who's somebody that would become a prominent figure really in the cruiserweight division for a while. He would go against, of course, Rey Mysterio Jr. for the WCW Cruiserweight Championship. This match, to me, I felt like might have been the one that stole the show. Jericho and Wolverine kind of had a really good shot at that and just about stole it, but I felt like this one even was a bigger highlight of the two on the show.
Oh, most definitely. Super Callow. I still can't figure out how he kept that hat on. I mean, that was amazing keeping a hat. I'm trying to say, is that thing going to fall off? Mean, Super Callow and Rey Mysterio. I mean, hands down, man. These guys, what they did, and I feel like, no offense, and when I watched this match back, I always felt like this match right here should have been the opener. No offense to
Yeah,
DDP and Chavito, but this should have been the opener to get the crowd into it.
yeah, I'd agree with that. As we mentioned before, a lot of times back in the mid 90s, late 90s, I should say, 95, 96, 97, the Cruiserweight title match was the pay-per-views and even on Nitro. Um, this one I could have definitely seen easily kick off the show and probably would have been a better choice, but ended up here towards the end of the show, middle of the show, really. And these two guys really pulled out all the stops. You seen points where Super Callow had the advantage for minutes, and then you seen Ray had the advantage for minutes. In the end, the finish, of course, was amazing when Ray did the jump off of one ring to the other ring to hit the West Coast pop, as we'd later learn to call it. But just incredible to see the way Ray could move even back then. But now knowing this week on Raw, he's starting to move a little bit more like that after he had that stem cell therapy done. Not quite as gingerly, but
Yeah, I agree with you that, it's amazing that the Hall of Famer is still going strong today.
26 years later. Yeah.
He's just got to deal with his bastard of a son. I mean, what are you going to do? I mean,
Yeah, he needs to take his son to the woodshed again. But that's another story. But yeah, Ray and Super Cruiserweight title. It makes you wonder. I would imagine he had his hat attached to the mats somehow, because he never did lose that hat no matter what.
No. But it was pretty cool to see a guy with a... I always felt like it was really cool to see that mask with a hat. I think it had sunglasses too, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Unique look, that's for sure. With another win. Of course, Ray would kind of call out Dean Malenko after the match and say, hey, I'm still here. I'm still the Cruiserweight champion. Being somebody who wasn't on the show, but into more between Dean and Ray down the road. From there, we go into the tag team title match as you got Sags and Knobs of the Nasty Boys going up against Harlem Heat, Booker T, and Stevie Ray with Sister Sherry and Colonel Robert Parker in their corner, of course. Harlem Heat were up to their shenanigans as usual, with those two being outside the... Honestly, did the Nasty Boys ever really have a match that you can say, I never... No offense to Knobs and Sags, but I just feel like that never happened. Sorry if I talked over you. I did say
okay.
Lost there for a second.
No. I was just trying to figure out what the hell you were saying. The only thing I got was Knobs and Sags is... Nah, I'm like, what the hell is he saying to me?
They never had a match that stood out. That's pretty much what I was saying, in my opinion.
Okay, good, because I heard bits and pieces of that thing.
Right?
You're right. I mean, the Nasty Boys were okay.
Yeah.
They're okay, and Harlem Heat was Harlem. I mean, their career has shot. You hear more about Harlem Heat career than you hear about Knobs and Sags. I mean, you have Hall of Famers and guys that wish they're in the Hall of Fame. I mean,
pretty much.
There's always a doubt, and we could talk about, because we're talking about them. In your opinion, do you feel like the Nasty Boys deserve to be in the WWE Hall of Fame?
It is a tough topic to talk about. Honestly, in my opinion, no. I don't think they deserve a spot really in there. I don't think they were needle movers or anything that really did anything to deserve WCW and WWF tag team champions, but still, I don't think they were up to par. They don't deserve it compared to some other teams that would more so. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like the Nasty Boys are in their own. They're in their... I always compare the Nasty Boys to the Dudleys, but a better version. The Dudleys... If you look at the Nasty Boys and the Dudleys were like a carbon copy, but better. That's why Devon and Bubba Ray are in the Hall of Fame. I feel like Demolition should be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, there's some tag teams that I feel like should be in it, and I always feel like Money Incorporated should be in there. I mean, they didn't last long, but they had
right.
There's some there's some tag teams that I feel like should be in it, and some of them that don't. But that's it. That's another story.
Yeah, that could be. But anyway, back to this tag team title match. Sherry was being chased by Sags at points during the match, and yeah, it was a match. Pretty much plain and simple. You see Sags and Parker get involved. Or Sherry and Parker get involved. I mean, Sherry ends up hitting Knobs with the cane, and Booker T rolls over, gets a 1-2-3 as the Harlem Heat retain the tag titles.
Yeah, like you said, it was a match, and everybody knew that was coming down the pipeline where the tag team titles were going. But that's for
Right.
the show for October, about where the tag team titles went. So, yeah, I agree with you. The Nasty Boys were just there.
Pretty much. I can give it to the crowd. The crowd liked the Nasty Boys. I remember chanting for them there, but never really any threat. All right. From there, we go in to the semi-main event, as we got first thing, and then out comes the Macho Man, Randy Savage, to go up against the 7-foot deer. 7'4" newer member of the NWO, the Giant. Savage and the Giant, of course, are two completely different animals, if you will, in there. I mean, Giant, of course, being the taller one of the two, makes things a little more difficult. This was an okay match between these two, I felt like. Part of it that really sticks out is Macho Man actually slamming the Giant towards the end of it before hitting the elbow drop. Of course, Hogan comes out, and the NWO gets involved. Giant ends up winning. What was your takeaway for this match? And I mean, I'll talk a little more about the ending afterwards.
My opinion, this is why I call Randy Savage one of the greatest technical geniuses of wrestling. He worked with an inexperienced Paul White.
Yep.
And he made him look like $1,000,000.
Pretty much.
You know, with Savage's ability to work with somebody that didn't have the experience, you got to give it up to the great late Macho Man Randy Savage. He really worked that match to a T. This is why Randy Savage is where he's at. I always put, and not because I hate the guy, I always put Savage on top of the immortal douchebag. Savage was a worker.
Right.
Savage's
Yes.
matches were better than Hogan. Savage didn't care if he won or lost. He worked for the business. Hogan worked from himself. So I got to get up to Savage. But for Savage to body slam Paul White, a guy that size, it's amazing because I know if Andre was alive, Andre would have crushed him.
Right. Probably would have too. Yeah, that's pretty much the best you can say about that. Like I said, that the finish was just made no sense, but yet it made sense in the same way because of what would happen down the line, NWO wise. Hogan coming out, of course, getting Savage's attention. Savage goes out of the ring, goes chasing after Hogan. The referee in here, by the way, is Nick Patrick, who is just over talking to the Giant while all this is going on outside the ring. Savage chasing after Hogan. Hall comes out of the entranceway. Savage gets the beat on him, but Nash comes out from behind and hits him with a chair. And Hogan, Hall, and Nash beat up Savage a little bit out at the ramp, and then they eventually throw him back into the ring. Giant just covers him, gets a 1-2-3. More shenanigans from referee Nick Patrick, who eventually, of course, would be confirmed as the NWO referee. We'll get into that more later, but this is the second time really you've seen this on pay-per-view from Nick Patrick, as he, of course, did the chop blocks to Lex at Hog Wild the month prior.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Nick Patrick. I mean, it's Nick Patrick. I mean, it was a typical. I mean, hell, he learned it from his father, because nobody knows this. Nick Patrick's father is one of the assassins.
Yeah. I think I have seen that.
Yeah, I mean, Nick Patrick is. You look at Nick Patrick's career, it's really tainted by the NWO. Even in WWE, when he was there doing the invasion, he did the same thing. I'm like, it works for him. So, yeah, good for Nick Patrick for screwing the Macho Man Randy Savage.
Pretty much. And Savage, of course, kind of could have used the win here, in my opinion, because he already had set up a main event world title match at Halloween Havoc the following month, but that just wasn't in the cards at this show.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of Randy, why did every time when he was pissed off at somebody or want to beat somebody up, he ran after them everything? He did it with Ric Flair, he did it with Hogan, and then he did it with Diamond Dallas Page. It's like Savage got a lot of exercise by running after people.
Right? And he did. I think it was just because of the madness part of Macho Man. He just always seemed and couldn't help himself.
And people that don't know Randy, what you saw on TV was the Randy you saw on the back. I'm well aware of it because I've been back there, back behind the curtain. Randy Savage is one of the sweetest guys, but he was always in character. That guy was so intense, I thought he was going to pop a vein.
I can see that. Very much so see that. All right. So then, of course, before we go diving into the main event match, we got to talk what led up to the main event match. At this point in time, the NWO had, of course, had started with 3, as we know. Hogan, Hall, and Nash. Hall and Nash, and then Hogan. But then we'd see in the video package the emergence of the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, joining the NWO. Money with him, of course, to try and bribe people. It would work to bring the first person over from WCW in the form of said giant, turning his back on the Dungeon of Doom and the WCW to join the NWO. And then the Monday before Fall Brawl, there would be a little meeting out in the parking lot on Nitro. And Lex Luger, the Horsemen, were there confronting the NWO. Who would come out of though during that segment?
Well, Tony, that was supposedly supposed to be the icon in the franchise, the Stinger.
Indeed it was. And the Stinger would go on to attack Lex Luger. So everybody, including Eric Bischoff, was very stunned to see that Sting had turned his back on the NWO, or so they had thought, or on WCW, sorry, and joined the NWO, or so they had thought. So then we fast forward here to Fall Brawl, and just before this match takes place, you got Mike Tenay backstage talking. I got to bring this up too. Talking to Flair, Anderson, and Luger. Flair at one point does mention Mean Gene. He calls Mike Tenay Mean Gene during the interview. I don't know how many people caught that, but I'm thinking, man, Nate, what have you been drinking? They're in Flair country in Carolina here for this show. But anyways, these 3 guys are talking about they're the 3 men that'll be representing WCW. They're not bringing in any other member of the Horsemen for this match. Sting's not going to be a part of it since he's obviously jumped ship to the NWO. So they'll just take care of it from there. In comes Sting. And he tells Lex Luger, that wasn't me that attacked you. Of course, Lex doesn't believe him because he looked at him face to face. He's seen that it was Sting, or so he thought. And none of them believe Sting. So Sting pretty much just goes storming off before we get into this match. Anything else to take away leading into this match before we dive into the War Games match?
Well, by the way, you were speaking about Monday Nitro. Man, when anytime that Lex Luger got hit by somebody, he always yelled. I'm like, would you stop yelling? It's not that big of a deal that you're getting kicked by the boot.
Right? That is true.
And like you said about Nature Boy calling Mike Tenay, Mean Gene Oakland, the reason why Mean Gene wasn't on the pay-per-view, he was in contract negotiations to renew his contract, and there was rumors that time that Mean Gene Oakland was going to go back to WWF. But they sewed him up for a couple of years, and Mean Gene finished his career with WCW till he came back home to WWE and right after WrestleMania 18.
Right. It was good. Gene did the voiceover for a video package during the show, but
Yeah.
that was all you got from Mean Gene. All right. So here we go. Main event, the match beyond, if you will. We got Team NWO versus Team WCW in War Games. You kick off the match with Scott Hall from the Outsiders against Double A Arn Anderson for 5 minutes. Those to be the ones to start. I mean, always the Horseman representative that would start a War Games match. So.
You know what? I never thought about that. That is true. That is true that he always started the match during that time. When he was a part of the stud stable with Colonel Parker and, Terry Funk and Dirty Dick Slater, did he even start that one too?
Let me double check. I swear to it. That was just what?
Yeah. And was he a part of the Dangerous Alliance too?
Hey, now go away. You want? All right. So the stud stable he was part of. Yeah, it doesn't show me the Dangerous Alliance one, because that must have been before it was actually called Fall Brawl. When he's looking at Fall Brawl.
I think it was called Wrestle World, Wrestle Wars or some shit.
I'll get into that in a minute. Oh, I thought it would tell me who started. What's part of that War Games match? It should. No, it doesn't. I'd have to rewatch that match from '94's War Games to see if he started. I want to say yes, but I won't say for definite. Maybe I should just look up War Games matches. That might tell me better.
I know. Double A against Scott Hall. I mean, two different styles of wrestling. I mean, that's amazing how that happened.
Right. So, okay, so the very first War Games, of course, goes back to July 4th, 1987. It was Road Warriors, Nikitai Koloff, Dusty Rhodes and Paul Ellering versus the Horsemen of Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Luger, Blanchard, and J.J. Dillon. That one. That was at the Great American Bash Tour. That's what it says. Let's see if that tells me who started. Doesn't really, because it shows all the different matches that were part of that tour. Oh yeah, because they did that match twice. They did it July 31st of '87 as well. That War Games match. Except for the second one had the War Machine in there instead of J.J. Dillon.
Yeah.
And then did it on a house show August 16th with J.J. Dillon back in there. Man, I think they didn't include some of these War Games matches on the WWE package then.
Yeah, that would have been nice if they did.
Yeah, would have. So I'm just going to go, and like I said, there's a lot of them on the Great American Bash Tour from '87. I'm just going to go with the pay-per-view ones in the first one, because a lot of them are even '88 and '89. Actually, on pay-per-view, it shows is the Great American Bash 19. It was the Road Warriors, the Midnight Express, and Steve Williams, Dr. Death, versus the Fabulous Freebirds and the Samoan SWAT team. So that one didn't have Double A in it. That was actually the 16th War Games match. Though.
Shit.
Yeah, those. Wrestle War 91 was the first one the Horsemen were really part of on pay-per-view anyways. It was the Four Horsemen version: Ric Flair, Sid, Barry Windham, and Larry Zbyszko versus Sting, Brian Pillman, and the Steiners.
Wait, Larry Zbyszko was a part of the...
Yeah, Larry Zbyszko was part of the Four Horsemen at one point.
Shit, I never knew that.
Early 90s. 91, yeah.
Wow.
Then if you jump ahead, Wrestle War 92, you had Sting Squadron versus the Dangerous Alliance, and you're right, Arn Anderson was part of the Dangerous Alliance in that match. I'm pretty sure he did start that match part of the Dangerous Alliance as well.
Wow. And you wonder why Arn Anderson has neck trouble.
I know, right? He was always the workhorse of the War Games.
Yeah.
But yeah, as we were saying,
and now he just holds
him and
now he just holds a Glock and shoots people.
Right? That he does. Double A and Scott did pretty well for the first 5 minutes. Of course, after that 5-minute interval ended, Kevin Nash versus Double A. And Double A actually held his own for the most part of that 2 minutes, being alone with those two guys in there. They would get the upper hand close to the end of it. Lex Luger would be out next for WCW's side, but he came out before he was actually supposed to. Came into the ring about 30 seconds before the time expired. And I think it was about 20 seconds, but still. Evened up the odds. Of course, then you get Hollywood Hogan coming out there. Luger and Arn actually got the jump on Hogan. Even though it was 3-on-2, they had a pretty decent shot with Hogan there for quite a bit of time during that period before Hall and Nash got back in and made it so it was 3-on-2. Then Ric Flair comes out. And that brings us to the question to be answered. Who will come out next for WCW and the NWO? NWO first, of course. These 6 guys were going at it. Nothing unusual for what you'd see in a War Games match. All 6 of them back and forth. And then out comes the next participant, the 4th and final man for NWO, and it's Sting. So we thought, anyway. We'll get into that in a moment. He comes in the ring. The announcer is mentioning how, well, Sting's definitely jumped ship. He's joined the NWO. He's coming out there and helping them out. Everybody seemed like they knew for sure what was going on. Well, the time limit expires to reveal the final participant of W. Here comes another Sting. Actual, real icon, Sting. As we have 2 Stingers in the ring, in the cage in the War Games. Sting comes in. He clears house all on his. Took out all 4 members of the NWO. Of course, leading to the infamous Are you satisfied now? Is that enough for you? And then to Luger, Iron, as Sting walks off, leaving Team WCW high and dry. And the NWO takes advantage from it. Fake Sting would F-lock on Luger. Hogan gets a chin locked in there as well. Luger, I guess, ends up passing out technically, and that gives the win to Team NWO. Quite the interesting take. And I mean, you and I both know, of course, we've been watching wrestling for a long time. We've seen everything that happened in WCW. A lot of big things came out of this War Games match in the long run.
Oh, hands down. Hands down. Everything changed for WCW at this event. I mean, there were some stipulations that they added towards the beginning that if the NWO wins, they could challenge for any title in WCW and get their own show. If Team WCW won, the NWO will be dissolved, and that was another. But the major one was we went from Beachbody Sting with the blonde hair and the spikes and the face paint to the more silent, long hair Crow Sting.
Right. That we did.
Yeah.
Because this, actually, when you look at it, and I mean, we can talk about it more in full when we do our next Three Faces of Wrestling, but this would be year for Sting not to be in a match. So,
Yeah. I mean, it was over a year, but nobody really noticed because back then they really didn't kayfabe about what the wrestlers were doing. Sting was still wrestling, but not in the United States. He was basically secluded for a year in WCW, but he was wrestling in Japan. You know,
yeah.
I mean, he said it in his documentary when he became the Crow. He basically was wrestling in Japan. Uh, he gets home and he's not doing anything for WCW because they want a transformation from him from you know, the upbeat, colorful Sting to the black and white Sting, which to me, I think it helped his career.
Yeah, I would agree. Their first Sting, if you will, kind of had run its course, and he had changed his hair color, gotten rid of the bleach blonde, or a couple months before that, went to his darker color, his actual color, and it's just the face paint, the colorful face paint, the colorful gear just kind of ran its course, and we were in a new time for wrestling. It was definitely a much needed change of pace for the icon.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And if you watch the Monday after Fall Brawl, Sting basically was telling people what he really thought, and it helped him out. I mean, the guy's a Hall of Famer. He deserves where he is. I'm just really happy that he did turn because what would have happened if he didn't turn? I don't think Sting with Hulk Hogan in the mix. I don't think Sting would have survived WCW.
No, I don't think he would have either.
Yeah,
Fair assessment.
because Hogan had to be the center of attention every
Yes.
time,
Yes.
and people catered to him. But if you look at Sting's career before Hogan came in, That man had world title shots. That man was making that company good. When Hogan came in, he became Hulk Hogan's bitch.
Pretty much. The WCW
You
World
know,
Title
and
reigns.
yeah. And I feel like, if it wasn't, and people don't know this because they don't know what we know, Sting didn't know what to do with his colorful Sting until the great late two-time WWE Hall of Famer Scott, hey yo, Scott Hall says, hey, I went to the movies to see Brandon Lee, Bruce Lee's son, may he rest in peace
Mm-hmm.
to both of them, and I dress up as the Crow. It fits you. If it wasn't for Scott Hall making Sting feel like it could work, I don't see Sting. I don't see Sting surviving.
No, I don't think we would have gotten the Sting runs that we did in TNA and even in WWE's brief run if it wouldn't have been for that turn for this.
Yeah, most definitely. I
We
mean,
wouldn't have had it. But yeah, that's praise for Sting. Of course, after the match, Luger crawling out of the ring, screaming out Sting as he's trying to crawl to the back. NWO's got to beat up everybody still, even after the match is over. Savage comes out, ends up taking 2 slams. Elizabeth comes out, tries to cover up Savage. She gets spray painted in the back of her. They end up spray painting Savage anyways. Get on the microphone and talk. They even take over the announce table. This was just classic NWO taking over the end of a show.
I agree, but I know you agree with me. But hell, I didn't know Randy was coming out until Tony Schiavone goes, "Oh, Randy Savage out. He's going to the ring." Like where? He flew so past that
Right.
camera. I was like, "Oh shit, Randy Savage is in the ring."
Right. Yeah, no, he was definitely didn't see him coming out there. I just all of a sudden see him in the middle of the fight, pretty much,
Yeah.
and taking Hogan to the ring. All in all, I would say Fall Brawl 96 was a decent show. Not sure it was the War Games match was, I mean, in the long run, it was the start to a really big storyline for WCW, but the match itself was just okay, in my opinion. It wasn't one of the all time. To me personally, you might feel different, but
No,
I would say,
I agree with you. I felt like it was a short. If you look at the previous War Games, something went
yeah,
on forever. This was a
right,
short one.
very short. It was only like a 20-minute War Games match or something like that. So, but yeah, overall, if I was to grade this Fall Brawl, I'd probably say maybe like a 7.5 out of 10, probably.
Other than a couple of matches, seeing the NWO because it's my boys. I'm giving it 5.5.
Yeah, I was gonna say my 7 felt kind of generous, but they'd do better and would do better. I feel like afterwards.
Yeah.
Hog Wild is even better in most aspects, but that was that. So that's our take on. We do want to talk. You probably getting any kind of stutter there. My connection was lost for a second again. We did want to talk about. Uh, we did because, of course, we did Bash in Berlin and NXT No Mercy. Bash in Berlin didn't really give us any surprises because Eddie and I ended up 4-1 in our predictions. Johnny had 2 wrong. That gives you the little count. So starting for this last part of the year, Eddie and I are tied 4-1 record. John's behind us 3-2. But we didn't really want to talk Berlin. No, Eddie, it was the other show that happened last weekend that we wanted to discuss. What was that show?
NXT No Mercy.
It was, wasn't it?
Yes,
All
it
right.
was. And thank
So,
you for like talking.
Yeah, no problem. We're only an hour and we can go a little longer to talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah.
So NXT No Mercy. I mean, you and I have talked a little bit about it on Facebook Messenger, but we're going to talk some here. Off with the tag team titles on the line. You got Chase U defending the titles, as in Andre Chase and Rich Holland, against Fraxium, as they're known, Nathan Frazier and Axiom. Good match to open up the show. I'll get more into why I still don't think it should have opened the show. In the end, I was not thrilled with the end of the match, who won the match anyways, but it kind of made sense, I guess, with what happened after the match. Frazier and Axiom, of course, walking out 2-time NXT Tag Team Champions. Andre Chase got pinned by Axiom. The bigger story was what happened after the match. What did you take out of the match before we go into what happened after the match, or you can even take it into what happened after the match?
Why would you even take the titles off of Fraxium, next 10 or whatever? Why would you take the tag team titles off and then put it right back onto them and know what you felt like? The match was good, but it wasn't. It's something I want to see a title change.
Well, no, I agree. I feel like they just did it because they wanted to give Ridge his first taste of WWE, but they could have done that in other ways.
Yeah,
after the match, as mentioned.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just think they, like you said, they could have did it another way and put them on with another title, not just say, okay, here's the tag for like 2 weeks, 17 days. Yeah. Hey, great job, NXT.
Or 19. Mm-hmm. And then turn around and after the match have Ridge turn his back on Chase U and attack all 3 members, Duke Hudson, Riley Osborne, and Andre Chase. I feel like, honestly, that was the bigger storyline out of the entire thing was Rich Holland turning his back on Chase U and taking him out, hitting that, I don't even know what you want to call it, the DDT that he hit on the announce table to Andre Chase, of course, as Thea Hale's playing pretty much, wondering why Ridge is doing what he's doing. Andre Chase ends up getting stretched out. They talk more about it throughout the show. It just all, like you said, it just all kind of give them the tag team titles in the first place if that was the route they were going to go in the long.
Oh, yes. And let's just give it up to, Chase U. I mean, you have Osborne and mini-me of Wade Barrett. Basically, when Rich Holland pushed them, you see that he didn't even touch him and they just threw themselves out the ring. But Andre Chase taking that bump on the table. And I know it's going to sound weird. I know there. I know they're trying to make him look good. I get scared that he's going to mess up and going to have another Big E situation. I know Big E forgave, said it was an accident, but Ridge Holland doesn't know how to brace somebody, and that really was like, oh my god. I know this is a storyline, but you got to be careful with these guys because they're putting their life in their hands. Sometimes when I see Ridge doesn't move, I feel like somebody needs to watch him and teach him because he is so green.
Right. He does still look pretty green. Anyway, really needs to be different. That's for sure. Shall we move on past that into what happened next on No Mercy? They follow that up with the first interpromotional match of the night. TNA X Division champion, as he won the title 2 nights prior at TNA Emergence in Ultimate X. I almost called him Nash Carter. Zachary Wentz coming out there to face his former tag team partner and brother, Wes Lee. We said it in our prediction show. I still said it afterwards, and I'll still say it today. This match should have opened NXT No Mercy. Hands down.
Yeah, I mean, Wesley and, Zachary West, whatever his name is. But, yeah, I mean, hands down, this should have started. It could have been like a good old cruiserweight division match. It could have been start the show and Eric Bischoff's in the back collecting the money.
Right? Yeah, because these two put on a hell of a show, reminiscent of those cruiserweight matches that we'd see back in the 90s. Seeing these two go at it. A really good match. I felt like the NXT people in NXT have been very happy about how things have gone with Zachary Wentz since they brought him back in. Honestly, I can see why, because he has been performing really well. He was really good in the spot when Trey Miguel, I felt like, and he was good in coming back, trying to get a revenge in this match as well. It'll be interesting to see where things go from here, especially knowing that Zach and Trey have a tag team title match coming up this next week on NXT. But to see Trey Miguel kind of get involved a little bit, taking the chair from Wes Lee, who was going to use it and would have got himself disqualified, which makes no sense. But leading into Zachary Wentz hitting that amazing finishing cutter off the ropes at the end of the match to get the win. Definitely wasn't my bingo card to see a TNA wrestler beat an NXT superstar, as that was the only match you and I and that we all pretty much got wrong. But like I said, it was a great match. It should have been the opener, is the only qualm I have with NXT when it comes to that match.
Yeah, you know what? When I was watching that match, I was like, oh my God, did they just have a TNA wrestler beat an NXT wrestler? That it was like, what the hell? What? I was like, what the hell? But I know, knowing Shawn Michaels' creative genius, a tag team title match is coming up on Tuesday.
Yeah.
You know what that means? That next XCM and Fraser are retaining. No, it's going to be an interference by Wesley.
Unfortunately, because I'd rather see the Rascals be the tag team champions and see how they'd run with that.
Yeah.
I didn't write these that went on the show in this book, but I believe they're pretty much exactly how I've got them written down now from there. So I believe after that match was the NXT Women's North American title match. Lonnie Jordan and Wendy Chu for that title, of course. So for this match, of course, you had said you thought Wendy Chu and I both said Kalani was going to retain. It was it was a decent match. I felt like these two had. It's still kind of getting a little Jordan in this type of a role because she's still newer, obviously. Wendy, I don't feel like we've seen. She was out, of course, for close to a year with the injury. This was an okay match.
I agree. I felt like it was, it was put on. It was put on there for a reason. I mean, let's just say this. I mean, it was just, eh.
I mean, Kalani would hit a frog splash at one point. They could say that Vic Joseph did call it a 5 stars, but it wasn't no 5 stars. It wasn't Rob Van Dam-esque, in my opinion. I know Rob Van Dam's one of her idols, and she likes using that split-legged moonsault as a finisher, like RVD would use as one of his signatures, but it still wasn't as good. And when I went and gave it 5 stars, I would have given it maybe 3. But that's besides the point. Kalani would pick up the win with that split-legged moonsault. The more interesting story to come out of this match, again, happened after the match, I felt like. Wendy Chua in the ring trying to recollect herself, and Tatum Paxley would come out and get a little revenge as she would choke out Wendy Chua like Wendy had done to her a couple weeks prior on NXT, which would lead to what would happen this week on NXT.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when I watched it Tuesday, I was like, oh, next week's going to be really good with that tag match.
Right? To see Rosemary again was on NXT, of course. She had the match with Tatum Paxley. Tatum won. Looked like it was going to be 2-on-1, Rosemary and Wendy going after Tatum, but then Tatum got a little of assistance from an old friend slash enemy.
Yeah.
In the form of Roz Lyra Bell. Quite the embrace those two had. It's going to be interesting to see how things turn out for those two.
Oh.
Against
Rosemary. Definitely, because they're already planting the seed that Tatum Paxley will join Selena Vega and Tyra Valkyria against the Pulp Fiction Alliance. Yeah.
But no, we know who the tag team partners will be on Monday night. It's not going to be Tatum, but
yeah. But we know it's going to happen eventually. We know it's going to happen eventually.
Probably. I think Natty might end up turning heel in Calgary on Monday, but that's another story.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, she has talked to Sonya backstage when Sonya was trying to recruit people before Natty's contract was up. So, from that we go into the men's NXT North American title match. The Don of NXT, Tony D'Angelo, of course, going up against Oba Femi, or the Ahmed Johnson, if you will. I will say, in my opinion, this might have been one of Oba Femi's. I think mostly because of who he was in the ring with. But I might have picked him. I still was not happy with the outcome of this match. You can still tell Oba needs a lot of work, in my opinion. I know they see him pretty much as the next big thing, and the higher ups backstage are really high on places. I even see it from a bunch of people online that they think he's a future world champion. Now, I feel like he's got a lot of seasoning he still needs to him. I really wish Tony D'Angelo would have won here. I thought there was spots that could use a crowbar or some weapon of some sort. Yes, I felt like with the Normies. And Tony did get hurt during the match. So that wasn't Femi's case either.
Yeah. I do feel like the same when you do. I feel like Tony D. He did his stuff to make Omar Johnson. Omar Johnson. He made him look good. But who else is it for Obafemi to wrestle? I mean, he's beating everybody. Everybody that puts in front,
Right?
he's a monster. I said, what? Are they just going to go with somebody that does this from a different company?
Maybe a
Because
PCO,
if it
maybe.
does happen, you, you know that match. You know that match is going to be absolute.
Ah, I see what you do there. Perhaps.
Because WWE has a lot of stars in them that it could help their boy Cody to start his version of the Four Horsemen.
We'll see. Like I said, Obafemi's on the cusp. He's still in the rivalry with the family, as we've seen on NXT. Could perhaps lead to if Tony's able to at some point. If it does, then Tony better win the title. That's all I got to say about it. I know he won the Heritage Cup, but Tony better than that when it comes to won any other NXT championships.
I mean,
in my opinion.
Him and Stacks just had the tag team title. Yeah.
Gold. He just
No, he hasn't won any single. I wish he did because he is a great talent.
Mm-hmm. All right. So then we move on to the women's championship match. When you got Sam Perez defending against Jada Parker. Jada looked really good in this match. I thought it was probably her best match that we've seen from her to date. Fractured ribs that she had, though. But this was, to me, one of the best matches I felt like on this card.
Yeah, I do too because you got the dominant champion and Roxanne Perez. I mean, looking yummy as she does. And then you got the up and coming Jada Parker from Crime Time. Do what she does best. I mean,
2.0.
you know, 2.0. That girl is going to be a future champion. She has the it factor.
Yes, she does. Like I said, they had a great match. Insane some of the spots they did at the end of this match. I mean, going through the barricade at one point, Jada did, and outside on the part of the broken barricade, throw her back in. Of course, hit a second pop rocks, get the 1-2-3 for Roxanne on those ribs plenty of times before that. Even looked like she could have won the match with the crossface at one point, but Jada actually got out of that. So not too many women have been able to do that since Roxanne started using it. There a bigger story that happened after the match, even with as great of a match as that was?
Oh yes, the debut of I hate her name. I always get her name wrong. Julia with a G.
Yes. Julie spelled a little differently, but that's okay.
Yeah.
See Julia make her debut. No words were said, just a stare down between her and Roxanne Perez, and that was all that was needed for that debut, in my opinion. It's going to be interesting to see how things turn out between those two when they move to the CW on October 1st.
Oh, definitely. It's going to be great. And I was wondering, I can never tell with, people from overseas. I know she was with Stardom. Is she Mexican or Korean or Japanese? Because she
I'm pretty
looks.
sure she's Japanese.
Is she? I mean, she has that. She has that Oscar look going when Oscar debuted, but hers is like a darker version. I mean, I never saw her
Right.
wrestle. I never saw her wrestle, so I don't know
No,
how
me neither.
she does. But I heard that she is one of the best, and I can't wait to see that match with Roxanne and her. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, she is Japanese. She is from Japan.
Yeah,
She's of Japanese descent.
but
And I mean,
she looks like $1,000,000.
and the entrance music was really good. The display was really good for her on both No Mercy and NXT this past Tuesday. She's definitely got style written all over. Why? But there's also a couple more women that WWE and NXT sooner rather than later. So we'll see what happens with those two ladies as well, 2 or 3. So exciting times for like. Is that I'm going to bring up though? How much longer do we see Roxanne Perez in NXT with knowing this and the title match pending on the CW debut?
I know it's going to sound maybe offhand. I will hold off on her until the Royal Rumble.
I can see that. Have her in a program, start a program for WrestleMania at the Royal Rumble, perhaps.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting. You could have her face some of those newer girls before she leaves NXT. Besides, she isn't in the title.
That's what I'm thinking. Have her face Delta and what was that other one? Sierra.
Stephanie Vicker.
Yeah, Stephanie Vancouver. I mean, have her face them girls. I mean, she's doing good as a heel. Just give her a little more time to season, and then bring her up to the main roster. I wish she would be part of Monday Night Raw because I would love to see her first program against Mommy.
Ooh, that'd be interesting. Interesting. So, we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. I'm pretty sure she's going to drop the title at the first NXT on the CW when they're in Chicago. But there is a certain other woman from Chicago that might be returning to NXT sooner rather than later, though, as well. You never know. She might pop up and try to help Roxy retain the title, too. So.
Oh, yes, and she's related to the best in the world. That's her man, AJ Lee.
Not who I was referring to, actually. NXT that is
Okay,
from. That being Cora Jade, who has got her own history with Roxanne Perez as both a friend and an enemy.
That's true. That's true. But speaking of AJ Lee, because I've been hearing rumors, and I know you have, Roxanne wants to have a match with AJ Lee
Yeah, I've seen
in
that.
NXT. I would love to see, man, but AJ hasn't wrestled in almost same time as Punk left.
Yeah, not too long after. About 10 years
Yeah,
almost.
yeah, and I would love to see her have her final send off match. It don't have to be like she's gonna be there forever, but I would love to see AJ come back and have a match with Roxanne and stuff like that. Do it at Stand and Deliver, or something like that, or do it at WrestleMania. I mean, that would
Yeah,
have been nice in Vegas.
right. I can see that. See what happens. All right. So then we go into the main event of NXT No Mercy. We, of course, got TNA versus NXT again as TNA representative, I believe, in Joe Hendry. But I also believed going into this match he would not walk out as champion. And that is, we all believed it. Unfortunately, as Joe Hendry would challenge for the NXT Championship against Ethan Page with Trick Williams as a guest referee. Pretty decent match. Almost felt like it shouldn't have really been the main event here, personally. What transpired beforehand. Thought the women's title match should have is what it is. And it was a decent match. Wasn't great compared to what it could have been. I felt like good spots though in it. We've seen both men use the other's finishers at different points on each other, which was Paige taking Ego's edge from Joe Hendry, and also Ethan hit the chokeslam on Joe Hendry. Of course, it comes down to Trick Williams getting knocked out of the ring by accident. Another referee comes out. It looked like Ethan Page was going to retain at that point. Trick would get back in the ring and stop the referee from counting 3, only to lead to Ethan and Trick shoving more and some more shenanigans. Trick would end up getting distracted. Ethan would hit a low blow on Joe Hendry, hit the 1, 2, 3. The title would come into play, of course, during the match as well. So, but yes, Joe Hendry pretty much got screwed. You had the match one point when Trick was down.
I'm gonna let you go first because I want to say what I'm gonna say. So I'm gonna give your thoughts about this.
So, like I said, it was a pretty decent match. I did feel like it should have been because of the shenanigans that transpired at the end of it. These two guys had, I don't know if they just don't have that great a chemistry part of it, but I just felt like it wasn't up we are used to for NXT main events. Pretty much the main thing is what I, and maybe it was
Okay,
partially
what
because
I
of the
took out what I took out of it, it was a typical Shawn Michaels creative. The referee was involved too much.
yeah,
I'm surprised he didn't use a chair like he did in '97, and do it like that. I mean, it's a
right.
typical Shawn Michaels referee, special guest referee match. I don't know what to say to you. I mean, I feel like poor Joe Henry, the man gets a shot at the NXT title. Let him win it. But
Should have.
I mean, why would it be harm if he brings the title, to TNA? It's not like he's going to keep it. That means he could be on the. This is about wrestling. He's the hottest thing in wrestling right now. I
True.
mean, I mean, you got to go with the hot hand. Joe Henry is the hottest in wrestling right now. I mean, even in his own company that he works for, has it on Dolph Ziggler. I mean, their world title on Dolph Ziggler. Like, Ziggler needs another title.
Right.
You know, maybe if Joe Henry decides, if WWE decides to have NXT and TNA merge into one group, then you put the title on him. I feel like, you're wasting somebody's. People love Joe Henry. Hear the damn crowd. They were cheering him like he was an NXT superstar.
Exactly.
It's the same shit. I feel like sometimes wrestling gets you to a point like, go with the hot hand. Think of before you do it. So he's a TNA contract guy with your world title. He's not going to Montreal screw job your ass and take the title to the company that you're working with.
Right? Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think I even said it in our group chat on Facebook afterwards. They should have just shocked us all and just given the title to Joe Hendry. It would have been less predictable. We all figured some shenanigans were going to happen, whether Pete Dunne was going to get involved or this is what I figured was going to happen. Pete Dunne would get involved after the match, but we still knew something was going to happen, that Ethan Page would retain. They should have shocked us all and just gave him the title to Joe Hendry. It would have been a much better finish and would have felt more like it should have been the main event in that situation, because it would have been huge.
We're going into next week. This coming Tuesday, Dunn and Trick Williams are going in a last man standing match. And it's for the number one contenders match on October 1st. We know it's going to be NXT in Chicago. You know that match is going to be, and I hate seeing Pete Dunne lose, but we're going to have Trick and Ethan Page in Chicago.
Yeah. Either that or a triple threat match. But either way, I feel like with it being the first show on CW, we're probably going to see Trick Williams win the title back because they view Trick as their main in NXT.
Yeah. And no offense to Ethan Page. The guy's boring.
You can see that in a certain way. Definitely don't want to see a long time.
No. He's good. He could get people to hate him. But him as world champion never made sense to me. A guy that was in the company for 2 weeks, you put the title on him because he is a Cody boy.
Pretty much. So personally, in that aspect, I feel like Ethan, with his gimmick, his look, he would make a great NXT North American champion. He definitely doesn't need to be NXT champion for a long period of times than just the one time.
Yeah, I see that in Trick Williams. I mean, Trick Williams was a good champion. You can see he's improving in the ring, and he's the hot iron. But I know this is going to sound a complete shock to everybody that watches us. I feel the kid Devontae Evans, I think I'm saying his name right. The one that says we're gonna bounce.
Yeah.
Bouncy. I think that kid would be great. I think that kid would be a great world champion.
Yeah, I think I could see that. I mean, it's not going to happen anytime soon, but I can see why you think that.
You got to give some of these younger talent that is on your roster. I'm not saying you got to go Joe Coffey as your NXT champion. You know, but I know you're gonna say this is a shocker because it is for me. I feel like Charlie Dempsey should be NXT World Champion.
Eventually, yes. Right now, he's still trying to develop his own character, I feel like, at the moment.
I know. Or just call yourself William Regal Jr.
You know, I think champion, unlike his dad, never won the world title. So,
Which is sad.
yes, I agree. Champion, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I feel like is on an up into their debut on the CW on October 1st. Like I said, I was surprised Zachary Wentz beat Wesley, but happy to see that they actually gave a TNA wrestler a whiz. Most of the time the NXT people go over more so than that. I'm looking forward to this next week's NXT though too. They're making it a big show. They've got TNA Knockouts champion Jordan Grace coming over and doing an open challenge for the NXT or for the TNA Knockouts championship, which will be the first time that's ever been defended on NXT programming. Again, the Rascals, Zachary Wentz and Trey McGowan against Frazier and Axiom. And as you mentioned, the last man standing #1 contenders match between Trick Williams and Pete Dunne. Just a big show really set up for this upcoming Tuesday on NXT.
Oh, yes. It's going to be a great show. I love to see who is coming for that NXT Women's Knockouts title. There's a lot of people in NXT. Yeah, there's a lot of people in NXT will love to be the TNA champion, women's champion. I would love to see who would it be? Maybe but I would love to see Fallon Henley go after that. Or JC Jane.
Yeah, it could be one of those two.
Yeah. You don't want to have Rosemary go after it because she could just go after it when she's in TNA.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. You don't want another TNA wrestler to show up to go after it. Enjoying this TNA and NXT talent exchange anyways that we're seeing. I feel like it's helped TNA a lot more than what AEW did in there.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with you. I feel like they should keep this going because I would love to see guys that seeing them in WWE. I would love to see Moose come in.
Yes.
I would love to see Eddie Edwards. Come in. Hell, I would love to see the TNA Knockout Tag Team Champions come in and do something.
Right. And there's been rumors that they might do a crossover premium live event as well. I feel like you'd have to bring in some of those bigger names. I mean, not to take anything away from Jordan Grace and Joe Hendry, but you still need to bring in the Eddie Edwards. You got to bring in people like that and not just lower names below who we've seen besides Jordan and Hendry to make it an actual
definitely
worthwhile. Yeah.
You know who I would love to see? Because we haven't seen him in WWE since his Juan Pierre Lafitte character.
Yo. Yeah, that would be interesting.
PCO.
It would be interesting to see PCO and interact with somebody in NXT.
But speaking of NXT and TNA, if they do this promotion crossover premium live event, we know it's going to be our champion, whoever is the NXT champion on that, and then we're going to have the WWE, the TNA Knockouts champion, TNA World Champion, which it
Should
looks
be.
like if you look at it's going to be Dolph Ziggler, coming in as the TNA champion and whoever it is. To me, and I know it's going to sound crazy, in November, and we make it War Games weekend.
The day after work.
Yeah, you do it. You do NXT War Games, and then you do Survivor Series War Games.
That would be interesting. Do NXT versus TNA inside of War Games?
Yeah.
Why not?
I think it'd be great. That would be. How many members could be in a War Games? 5-on-5?
Yeah. That's max.
Okay. If I had to choose my 10 guys right now, you got to have Dolph Ziggler as the captain. Then you go with Moose.
Yeah.
And then you go with the Hardys.
Ooh.
And then my last guy, And then my last guy, I'm thinking around this roster. Who should be the last one for Team TNA? People that hasn't been in TNA, or WWE.
Josh Alexander.
Yeah, I like that idea. I would love that. And WW in NXT, you have whoever the champion, and then put put Don of NXT, and then if you want speed, you go with Devontae Evans, and then if you want to round it out, Devon, yeah. If you want to round it out, why don't you put Gallus?
Ooh. Which two of Gallus?
The Coffee Brothers.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. See, with Gallus, you can do whatever. And the woman's going to be excellent because if they did an NXT crossover with the women's, you can have Roxanne Perez, Julia, Fallon Henley, and Cora J. And last but not least, you could do you could do Kalani Jordan.
I think I'd throw Sol Ruka in there instead.
Sol Ruka, yeah. NXT, TNA, you can put Jordan Grace, Ashley Edwards, and her tag team partner.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Alicia Edwards.
I was gonna say Ash by Elegance, but I'm gonna title that Ash Must Go.
Yeah.
You know, put Rosemary in there. I would love to see her in the War Games.
There you go.
I mean, who else is in TNA? Not what's her name? She just got her release.
Giselle Shaw.
Yeah, that was a shocker.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, there's some stuff that could be great if they do a premium live event between TNA and all that. That would be an excellent way to kick off the relationship's good. Continue it. You know, I feel like with the way TNA is in the Royal Rumble match and stuff like that, I would love to see Joe Henry in the Royal Rumble.
Oh yeah, that'd get a huge pop.
Yeah. Him getting slapped by Gunther will be awesome.
In the Rumble, because I think Gunther will still be World Heavyweight Champion come February.
Well,
God,
who knows what the... I know. But yeah, I think it's good. I think it's going to be a great couple of months of... Ladies and gentlemen, you don't know how much me and Tony loves wrestling, but this week was hell week for us. Holy shit, so much wrestling.
It was great. I'll take it every week.
Oh yeah, I would too. But it was like, my God, thank God we do not watch TNA pay-per-views, because I think we would have been in a coma. And we put on our Facebook, we're still here, but we're drooling from the mouth.
Right. But yeah. Anyway, we wanted to put that out there too. Talk a little bit about NXT. Big things coming up, of course, for them. Before we close out, of course, WWE's got their WWE week on USA Network next week. That's part of why NXT is loaded up, because Raw on USA Network for the next 3 weeks before NXT moves to CW. Of course, then it'll just be Raw and SmackDown on USA until January when Raw jumps over to Netflix. So big things coming for all three brands, as it'll be on the same network for 3 weeks. Limited commercial interruptions. They are advertising as well for all 3 shows next week. So that'll be a fun time to watch those 3 shows on USA Network. I am very much looking forward to tomorrow being the last Friday Night SmackDown on Fox. Tired of different things that have interrupted SmackDown on Fox over the last 5 years. So, and them getting moved over to FS1 and not being shown live during football games at different points during the preseason, all that crap that we won't have to worry about on USA. So looking forward to that. That's WWE wise. We were here, of course, talking WCW. Anybody who was in here, we didn't get any comments during the show, but we thank anybody who's watched currently while we were live. We'll thank anybody that watches later. Anything you want to mention for the weeks following now, or anything else before we close out here?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of September, we are going to look at the first ever to lead up to the of this pick classic WWE pay-per-view. We are going to look back at WWF Bad Blood 97, because that's what we were going to do, and I think it'd be great. And then what memories we have from Bad Blood 97. And then we're going to do our prediction show in October for the return in Bad Blood. And it's going to be really, really good. And I think we're doing a show. Are we doing anything for the 3 Faces of Wrestling?
I think that was the plan. We also had We have one more WCW thing we wanted to pull out there at some point this month, besides today. We'll get back with you on that stuff. But anyways, we'll keep you all informed.
Yeah. But thank you, and I know Tony Remy, thank you for the great views that we have at our prediction show at Bash of Berlin.
Yes, we're
we love
over.
we love the views, but people, we want some comments so we can talk to you. We're not mimes.
No, we're not. Yeah,
You
we've
know,
got
and I
200
know,
views from the Bash of Berlin prediction show. So
and I know Tony appreciates everything like I do, but we want to hear from you. You know, we want you to tell us if we're messing up, or if Tony goes off in a flash, and I have to look like, oh crap, I got to talk. You know, but we're here for the wrestling fans. This is Tiger Talk Wrestling, and this is where the big boys play.
yeah, you could say that. We use that gimmick these days. No.
Yep. Haha.
True that. We'll get the thumbs up and not the fireworks today. Gotcha. Oh, there they go. They say we'll make a liar out of you. So as you guys see
Right.
on the screen as well, I do have a QR code. If you guys are interested in looking back at any other shows that we've done on this channel, or just want to look at it, browse, click on that QR code up at the top of your screen. That is there for you to not look at more than just what you're watching live, perhaps, or watching it later date. Then maybe you just came across us somehow. Click on that link, click on, bring you right to our channel. You can watch anything and everything back. Comment on any videos that you guys watch. It doesn't matter if it's something that I did show this channel back in 2016, I think is when I started it now. So yeah, we're getting 8 years now. I've been working on this channel. Or it could be anything from just a week or a couple weeks ago shows to try and get more people to subscribe and get involved. We hope that you guys enjoy it. Like we said, like Eddie said, we enjoy seeing the views keep climbing for every show. 200 people, 200 views is amazing for a bash. We did that show late at night, and it's only been 5 days, and it's up to 200 views. So very proud of that. Again, thank you for everybody that's watched, whether you watch now or later. And that's pretty much all I got to say about that. I will have my stuff posted at the end here, but that I want to bring it up here. I'm gonna have to do it a different way than what I'm gonna look out for our other shows. I'm gonna look back and see what all we had planned. I should make it. What am I thinking? But yes, we will be back on air next week. The week after, I know we won't be because you got Irish Fest, of course, going on. So
yes,
we will take a week off.
When are you off again?
Have plans.
When are you off again?
Next week, I'm off. I'm off tomorrow, and then I'm off next week, Thursday and Sunday.
When do you get home on Tuesday?
Tuesday. So I won't be home till about 8:30 Tuesday night.
Oh my God. Do you want to joke?
I didn't catch what you said. It kind of muted you for some reason.
We love this. Do you want to do a show on Tuesday?
In NXT once I get home. So if we did something on Tuesday, it wouldn't be till late.
We could do a late night on today.
Well, what are you thinking?
Okay. We're gonna go back. We're gonna go back to November of '91. Right, the Survivor Series.
Oh yeah,
It's called. It's called W. It's called WWF presents this Tuesday in Texas.
that could be interesting.
They got some good matches on there.
Yeah, you got a good point on that.
I was just thinking that maybe we should do this Tuesday in Texas
You
because
could do
that
that
was the first pay for
for
the W.
retrospective.
Yeah, retrospect. Because look what happened.
Sorry, needed to mute that because it doesn't want to pause. I do want that to play again. Just won't be right this second.
Oh my God! Great White, the Wyatt Six came out.
Right. Anyway, you were saying
Yeah,
about Tuesday.
this Tuesday in Texas could be a great thing because it was after the Survivor Series, and then we know what happened after that with the World Wrestling Federation Championship, and I think it will be a great. And they had some good matches on. They had the World Wrestling Federation Champion, The Undertaker, going against the immortal douchebag Hulk Hogan for the title. Then you had Bret the Hitman Hart defending the Intercontinental title against, I think it was Skinner or Papa Shango. I forgot which one it was. And then
We'll figure.
the match that everybody wanted to talk about in that time, the Macho Man Randy Savage versus Jake the Snake Roberts.
Yes. Yeah, we could do that. It would be. We could do maybe a 10:15 or a 10:30 start time after NXT. Unless that's too
Yeah,
late for
because
you.
that is no. I actually we could call it Up All Night with Eddie and Tony, guest star and Rhonda Shears.
All night, but I mean, it'd probably be at least an hour show. Happens.
That's fine. But I was thinking about that, man. We've been doing WCW ones because they were excited in '96, but man, what a way to do the first pay-per-view other than in your house. The first actual pay-per-view other than the Big Four was this Tuesday in Texas.
It's true. That is true.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we should do that. Hey, I'm good with that. I was thinking I'll see how many matches are on there, but I don't know how many matches were. I know there was a couple of matches because I watched it. I spent $75 for that pay-per-view.
And did you? Not that terrible.
Yes, $6.95. God, I wish pay-per-views were that much.
I know, right?
But I
That
think
cost
we're
more than
good.
that.
I think me and Tony are good because we both want to eat something. Thank you again, everybody. And if you're not down with that, we got 2 words for you. Thank you.
Thank you indeed. with that, look forward to it. Catch us on Tuesday night, then. We'll see you guys. Have a good one.
This
I'm going to try that
Tuesday.
just one more time. So you do catch all that. You catch all that social media information. Eye of the tiger.